Tales of Estolia by Sashina Kerfman. Volume 1. The Promise of Zacharias. Part 7. Catalyst of Change. Chapter 9. Greeting.
In Northern California, the Hallow River is fed by the snowpack in the mountains. At their base are a trio of towns named Hallows Peak and North and South Hallows End. Several seemingly insignificant events in those three towns were critical to the project. The reconstruction of the dilapidated gatehouse for the gated community of Cubby Lane was one of those factors. Lion of Hath. Essay: The Forces Behind the Project.
Caris held Zeb's arm as they descended the stairs. Just as they stepped onto Estolian soil, the sun burst over the horizon, and the mauve and sepia of dawn were transformed into the bright colors of an Estolian sunrise. Zeb led her to the nearest of four men standing at the base of the steps to greet them. He looked a little older than Zeb and wore a thick ornate crown. Zeb bowed before turning to her.
Chrysandra, this is my brother, Leonidas Agamemnon Zakarian, Duke, Sovereign, and King of Estolia. Leon, this is Chrysandra Zakarian, my wife.
His nod was solemn and his words were stiff, if not quite unwelcoming.
I look forward to having the opportunity to get to know you better over time.
His eyes searched hers, taking in her orange-red hair and short stature, seeing the black eye and stitched cut on her face, and no doubt thinking about the shards of her reputation. The second man Zeb introduced her to was a little younger than the first. He had the classic tall, dark, and handsome look.
Chrysandra, this is my other brother, Nicodemus Luciano Zakarian, last resort, first consul, and keeper of the soul of Estolia. Nico, this is my wife, confirmed by no less than deity, Chrysandra Zakarian.
His expression was as inscrutable as his older brother's. He took her two hands in his, and drew her slightly closer, looking into her eyes. He nodded sharply twice before turning to look at one of the two older men. Her hands were still clasped in his. When he turned back, he said,
"Forgive me, my dear. In person, you seem nothing like your reputation on social media sites."
His smile, when it came, was sincere, and when he pulled her into his arms for a hug, she felt as if his greeting was all that she could have asked for. Once he let her go, he bowed towards her and then held up one hand.
Brother, it is essential that you and your new wife go directly to the temple to spend 7 days in the royal seclusion suite which has been prepared for you. At the end of the 7 days, the Spirit will speak to me and tell me all I need to know about this event. Then, and only then, will we know for sure if the marriage is sanctioned.
Zeb's eyes met his brother's, and for a moment they shared some silent communication. He let his breath out, as if he had been holding it, and started to turn towards the two older men. He stopped when Nico said,
As keeper of the soul of Estolia, all other introductions and interactions beyond those prescribed by your time in the temple must be curtailed. You will have time to greet everyone once your 7-day period is at an end. Go now, direct to the temple. We will have our interview after 7 days. He gestured to the other carriage. You are expected at the temple. May all the promises of deity come true and permeate your life, your marriage, and your future. May you fulfill your Bendelora.
Knowing she would not be living in Estolia, and that she might never return, she chose to focus her attention on her husband during their journey, rather than on the countryside. It was the first time she really looked at him. He was perhaps an inch or two shorter than 6 feet, which still made him tall compared to her 5-foot-nothing frame. He had black hair and warm brown eyes, a firm determined chin, thick eyelashes, and high cheekbones. His shoulders were broad, and she recalled the lean strength of his body when he pulled her against him during Sloane's challenge to their marriage. He was the supreme male animal, the deer with the most impressive rack of antlers, to use his peculiar analogy. He was her mate. She felt the prickling of her nerve endings when she realized she would be on intimate terms with him. He broke the silence to ask,
Do you use contraceptives?
No.
She was short in her response. What else could she add to that one word?
I hope we will begin a family when you are ready, Cassandra.
I would like that.
She added.
I normally go by the name of Karis. I don't mind Cassandra, but I thought I would let you know.
Thank you, Karis. I think both names are delightful.
The carriage had been following a road around the base of a tall mountain. Soon they were traveling in a narrow valley between two mountains. The one they had been circling had two structures that caught her attention. One looked like a medieval cathedral, while the other looked like a facade to a temple of some kind, against the face of the mountain itself.
This is Mount Estoliana,
Zeb explained. He gestured to the building standing near the mountain.
Normally a wedding is a private affair, focused only on the two people joining their lives. But the children of royalty have a special ceremony here in the cathedral, after their seclusion, to allow the citizens of Estolia the chance to get to know the newest member of the ruling family.
His expression was wistful as he looked at the cathedral, as if he was uncertain whether he would be allowed to have that royal ceremony. She hoped, for his sake, that they would.
The temple is within the mountain. At its heart is the royal seclusion suite, where we will spend 7 days. It is expected that royalty, sons and daughters of the king and keeper, spend the first 7 days of their union together there. At the end of that time we will have an interview with the head of the Estolian faith, my brother, and we will find out for sure what our future will be.
Are we completely isolated for the entire 7 days?
She asked him. He shook his head.
It is supposed to be a spiritual experience of some magnitude, and I was willing to forego this time if necessary, if deity asked it of me. But it appears we will be blessed to have this time together.
The carriage pulled to a halt near steps leading to an immense set of double doors. 2 young men in monk-type robes opened the doors of the carriage. Zeb helped her climb down and then together they approached the double doors of the temple. Inside they faced a foyer with brown and gold tiles. Another smaller set of double doors were at the end of the fan-shaped foyer, and there were halls to right and left. She held his arm as they walked slowly towards the double doors. As they approached them, he explained.
Normally, I would bring my prospective bride here to the temple, to this ceremony room, and we would then be sent to the seclusion suite for 7 days. We are not considered married in Estolian law until after the 7-day period and the ceremony that follows.
Another set of somber-faced young men opened the doors they were approaching. The room inside had a raised dais towards one end with an elaborate gold, purple, and green pillow resting on it. Several young men created an aisle, making it obvious they should climb onto the dais. Zeb looked at his bride as they approached the dais, and he wondered if he was being given silent instructions. She looked at him, and in that moment he was glad he married her, glad for the trials he was currently faced with, and he finally, fully accepted the role he was given years before he was born, and the place he inhabited in this and the greater world. He halted her and instructed her to kneel on the pillow. While it was not his place to give blessings, he felt the need to lay his hands on her head, and take a moment to thank deity for giving him so much guidance in his life, much more than the average Estolian received. She looked up at him, and in the moment before she knelt, he took in her appearance a little more closely than he had before. She was barely 5 feet tall, with long orange-red hair, large amber eyes, and a curvy figure. Her face was swollen and she had stitches on a right-angled tear near her left nostril from where she had been struck prior to his meeting her. She had a black eye. Once she was kneeling on the pillow, he placed his hands on her head lightly. Speaking aloud in the Estolian language, he offered up his thanks to deity, to Zacharias, to Estoliana, and to more than 80 generations of Estolians who always did the right thing in the interests of preserving the paradise of Estolia for all time. He accepted his role in the greater world, of somehow influencing world events, and helping to turn the tide of power hunger so they might, as a planet, move forward on a quest for peace and mutual beneficence. His time away from Estolia, and the knowledge he would never call it home again, led him in different pathways, bringing to him the extraordinary wealth through which he was able to secure this woman to his side. He felt the same wash of peace come through his body and his soul, and knew he was given an extraordinary role. He took a deep breath and then helped Caris to her feet.